We both had agreed earlier to talk about Holocaust and the role of Albanian people in saving thousands of Jewish people during the Second World War.
Yes.
Why is this topic so important to you, Ms. Held?
Well, this topic is important to me for a number of different reasons. First of all, I am the firstborn child of a Holocaust survivor from Oradea. Oradea then was Hungary and now it is Romania. So my dad was from Oradea, Transylvania. My father was placed in a work camp for 3 years, and my grandparents from Oradea were exterminated at Auschwitz. So unfortunately, my grandparents were not the lucky ones. As you may or may not know, just about all of the Hungarian Jews died, and very, very untimely, 3 months before the war ended. My father did escape from the Hungarian labor camp. He walked home several hundred miles, lice-ridden, weighing 80 pounds, and he came home to nothing. So it's a very, very sad story. The good news is that there were indeed righteous Gentiles who saved over 22,000 Jews from many different countries during the Holocaust. They've all been recognized at the Shrine for Martyrs in Jerusalem, which is called Yad Vashem. Mm-hmm. Now, on that list is the Albanians. And what the Albanians did was something that no other country did. They did what we call a top-down rescue or a collective rescue. Mm-hmm. And that started with King Zog back in 1935 when he was issuing passports for transit to North America. And Albert Einstein came to North America on an Albanian passport. So many, many people were saved. Those were the transported Jews who came from Austria, Greece, but also I need to mention the Albanian Jews who were indigenous to Albania were also saved. So as early as the early 16th century, we had Jewish settlements in your hometown of Elbasan, Vlora, Berat. So all of those Jews were saved, and in total there was over 2,000. What was different in Albania is that they were not hidden, rather they were hosted. That's what's different, because in other countries they were given food, they were given shelter for 1 or 2 nights, a small amount of time, they were hidden, but they weren't allowed to live their lives. And in Albania, the Jews actually lived their lives and lived their lives out until they transferred out of the country.
What is your connection with the Albanians in Toronto?
It's interesting. I joined my gym, the Columbus Center, 8 years ago, and for the very first time I met an Albanian man, Dimitri Daku, who's an Olympian and going to the Olympics, meeting on Wednesday.
I should pronounce it in our way, Dimitri Daku, right?
Dimitri Daku, thank you. And as soon as he got to know me a little bit, he brought a book to the gym for me, telling me about the Albanian and Jewish rescue. I had no idea of the connection. And then I've met more Albanians again and again and again, I guess because I live at Bathurst and Eglinton, and we have such a large Albanian population at Marley that I've come into contact again and again and again and learned so much about Albania. I'm just dying to go there. I've been doing a little bit of research on Albania and the Jews. And back to the idea of the collective rescue during the Holocaust, why did that happen? So for me, it went right back to Sufism and Bektashi, and the idea that Mehdi Frashëri, did I say that right?
Yeah.
Okay, the prime minister during the Nazi occupation, Bektashi and Sufism is definitely a religion of tolerance. And that's why and where the beginning started, and why the Albanians were so kind and so hospitable to the Jewish refugees and to their own indigenous Jews. That's where it started. And I'd like to quote, if I may, something that Frashëri said. "All Jewish children will sleep with your children, all will eat the same food, all will live as one family. We are all under one God." And then he went further, and he spoke and he tied this to, of course, your very important notion and context of pjesa. And pjesa we can describe as a code of honor, a code of conduct, and an idea that you are going to keep your promise. And it is definitely a culture of hospitality. And
can I make an observation
certainly.
here? Pjesa is a code of honor, but spread out in all religious communities in Albania. It's not something only related to Bektashi or to Muslims in general.
No, it's all Albanians.
Yeah,
it was just Frashëri's, his own orientation was Bektashi, and he came from a religion of tolerance. He also said, our home is first God's house, second our guest's house, and third our family's house.
According to the information available from the government and some analysis, I believe that there are around 30,000 Albanians of all origins living in Canada, not to mention a couple of thousands of Italian Albanians already assimilated, at least linguistically. The number is not too high, but still considerable to call it a community. In your personal view, what makes an ethnic group a strong community? The desire to prosper together, or the fear from a common risk, or something else?
I think the Albanians are here, as we've discussed already, for a number of different reasons. This is the first generation, your first generation. So you've got a child who's growing up, you've got a brother here with 2 children. It's the second generation that we're going to see do some fantastic things. Just like with the Jewish community, we have 4 generations here. And here I think there's an obvious tie. Can the Albanian community learn something from an older community that's more established? Yes, they can. How do you build your community center? How do you build your school? All of those things. And all of those things are going to be happening with the second generation. The first generation has to get established, has to make a living, has to go back to school, has to get all of those things done. And then your kids and your brother's kids and everybody else's kids are going to take over, and they're going to be bang, wow. They're going to make a real contribution to Canadian society.
What is your advice to the Albanian people, the ones that you just praised in your interview for their moral values shown during bad times? How should they preserve their identity here in Canada? Is that a priority, to preserve your identity?
Well, that's a very good question. I mean, I love my city, I love my province, I love my country, and I grew up here with my father putting that in my head from the beginning of my life, because he was always very grateful for Canada giving him a second chance. So I feel that Toronto is, of all cities, the most multicultural, the most accepting, the most tolerant. We have everybody here. And we all get along. And I feel that the Albanian culture, again, has an opportunity here to kickstart something very important, and it's going to take time.
Thank you. And one question regarding your profession as a travel writer. Recently, many people in the community have been involved in a discussion over an article published in a local magazine here in Toronto. The author, I believe, is James Morrison, and he wrote something that was not received well by the community. It was a travel log published by City Life magazine with very controversial content. What is your comment on that? And generally, how should one write a travel article?
I think I understand your point of view, ILIR. I did have the opportunity to read the article by Jim Morrison this morning in City Life magazine. And I think my presentation of Albania, when I go there and I write about it, is going to be very different. I have people to see in Tirana. I want to see Berat, that wonderful UNESCO city. I understand the whole city is a UNESCO heritage site.
Along with Eurocastre.
I will be going to Eurocastre for sure. I will be crossing the border. I want to go to Yanina because there is a wonderful Jewish gentleman there from New York who is resurrecting the Romanatis community there and rebuilding the synagogue there. So there's lots for me to do and see in Albania, and I hope that what I do is present a very clear and balanced picture of what Albania has to offer the tourist. I think you have to go to any country, first of all, by doing your research. If your research isn't done, come home and do your homework before you write. And one very, very important thing to remember about Albania, and that's why, part and parcel, why the Albanians saved the Jews the way they did in that collective rescue, was because of pjesa, because of the code of hospitality, because of the code of honor. It's a very, very welcoming country. So go there with an open head, with an open heart, ask for help when you're lost, and I'm sure that people will help you. In this particular case, the writer was very honest in saying that he knew nothing about Albania and that his trip was not planned. So I think that you have to see the presentation for what it was. It was a travel log on one particular segment of his trip. And I would leave it at that.
When is your trip planned?
My trip isn't planned yet. I'm hoping that you'll help me, and hopefully soon, because I think that we do not have enough knowledge about Albania. I've been lucky. I've made friends in the Albanian community, so I've learned about Albania, but it was a new country for me until 8 years ago too. And I was an ESL teacher, but I never had any Albanian students. As I understand, your brother Artur was the first student here in Toronto in 1992. So, you're a new community. So I'm new to Albania. Albania is going to be new for me, but I think I can do it justice. And I have a little bit of Italian, but good French and good Spanish, and I'm sure people will help me.
We hope that along with the Albanian viewers, there are also some Jewish Canadians watching this show. Do you have anything for them?
Absolutely. Well, I certainly hope that the PJesa exhibition is going to come to Toronto. I hope that Jewish Canadians will take a great interest in Albania, and perhaps some Jewish-oriented tours can be planned for Albania and Greece. Again, I think there's an opportunity for the two cultures to share and learn here, and for the older culture, the Jewish community, helping the Albanian culture, the newer community, to learn and grow. As I say, we're 4 generations, and you're still in your first generation.
I thank you so much for your time, and I wish you good luck in your next trip to Albania, and generally with your job.
Thank you, ILIR. Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.